everyone. Welcome back to Dr. Heidi, the Business Psychologist podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi. I'm very happy to say we have with us today Justin Maxwell from Big Life Financial. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Heidi. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, Justin has some very exciting information to share with us all today. We're going to have him tell us a little bit about himself. And then I think he has some interesting tips for all of you guys around budgeting. And I think it's really, really going to be a unique concept that you've never really heard of before or never really thought about. So we're excited to hear what he has to say. So let's get started today. Justin, do you want to just maybe start us off? Tell us a little bit about your backstory and how did you get into Big Life Financial and what is Big Life Financial?
Yeah, that's a great question. My backstory is unique for financial people. I think it's not normal. I used to be a school teacher. I had aspirations to teach at university in the coaching space. Mm-hmm. But as I was completing my master's degree, I found out that I didn't enjoy doing research as much as I thought I did.
Understandable.
And so for the listeners that don't know, the listener or professors do a ton of research. It's much more research oriented than teaching. And so I realized then that I didn't want to continue on that path. And I just so happened, things just aligned really well. I listened to a man by the name of Garrett Gunderson speak at a conference, and he's a financial thought leader is the best way to say it. And I was just blown away by the impact that had on my soul. I thought I only connected with coaching and teaching and physical education and lifting weights and teaching sport. So I never even pursued anything outside of that. I tried engineering a little bit because my dad was an engineer, but it wasn't really connecting with me. So I didn't even pursue that. So when he spoke, it connected with me on the same level that coaching did.
I just absolutely love that, Justin. I can definitely say throughout my career, I have not had the standard path too that most people have had. And every milestone or every benchmark has always been influenced by someone that I heard speaking or just by a mentor that I talked with that encouraged me to go down a path that I had never considered. I am a professor, and it's not a field that if you had asked me 20 years ago, I never would have said I would have become a professor. It wasn't even on my radar. It was actually during my MBA program that the dean of the program actually said to me, he was teaching a class, and he goes, "Have you ever thought about teaching?" And I'm like, "No, I'm the biggest introvert in the world. I don't like talking to people. I don't like, that's not where I find joy and passion." But what I did find is that where I find my joy and my passion is helping people grow and develop and learn. And once I kind of figured that out, I figured what worked for me, and I became much more confident going up and talking to people. So it was, these monumental moments in life when people really kind of come into your life, talk to you, just kind of give you that moment of what I refer to as like illumination, and allows you to go in a different direction or encourages you down a different path. And I can definitely agree with you. Most professors spend a majority of their time doing research. I'm actually fortunate enough that I'm not one of those. I do have to do some research, obviously, to keep credentialing and things like that. But I get to spend a lot of my time doing, I sit on a lot of committees that do more course development, things like that, which is more of interest to me. So that's how I put my community service into the university. And then I get to do a lot of consultancy work. So that's a lot of fun. So it bridges that theory to practical application as well. So, okay, let's keep going.
That's really, I think it's fun for me to speak with other academic people, just because that used to be I thought that's what I was going to do.
Yeah,
so
it's fascinating.
It's fun. So I had that, and I didn't immediately switch over to finance. I just knew that there was something here, and I needed to figure out what it was. So it took quite a while. It took probably 2 to 3 years for me to eventually end up where meeting my business partner, Derek Van Ness, who is the founder of Big Life Financial. And it just became a really nice fit. We ended up growing well together. We have good continuity. We had our visions of what we want to accomplish was well together, and we ended up just partnering. And so it's been a big journey. But Big Life Financial, to give your listeners an insight of who we are, we're a really unique and niche financial firm because we don't really fit the criteria of what a typical financial advisor would be, but we also don't fit fit the criteria of what an accountant would be. We try and bridge the gap between the two. We
Mhm.
feel that most people's deficiency when it comes to building wealth is because they're not saved enough money. They're not they're not finding enough money to put into wealth generating activities. And so we help people find those dollars and keep as many dollars they're making through very purposeful tax incentives, credits, and strategy. And then other variety of things where people are unnecessarily losing money or paying money to the government or organizations, help them capture those dollars in a systematic way and then deliberately choose to grow wealth with it. And we find that we can help accelerate people's wealth curves much faster because we're helping people capture what was already made. We're not helping them make new money. It's already been made. We're just helping them keep more of it. And so we specialize in helping people keep more of the money they make.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know our listeners are really going to appreciate the unique perspective that you guys have on budgeting. And I think it's also, as we were talking earlier, is going to fit really well. So listen up, you nonprofits who are out there, is really going to fit well for them as well to consider, you know, where you place your money, how you allocate your money, and how we go ahead and we, you know, are able to put money away for kind of that rainy day sort of situation. So I'd love to, you know, if you could share with our listeners a little bit about, you know, your budgeting philosophy and some of the unique things that you guys do behind budgeting.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be unique, and I hope people can capture this because this is really powerful. And you don't have to utilize the systems, the technology that we're describing. You can set this up without us. So I really want people to feel empowered that they can take action today, whether they ended up reaching out to us some way or just going in and doing it without us, because they can. It's not, we're not tied to this strategy or this philosophy. This is just a philosophy that makes a big difference. The first thing I would probably say is budgeting just doesn't work for most people. It's played out in reality, and the fact that the average American saves 2 to 5% of their income, which is not nearly enough, not even close to enough to actually have wealth to retire on or wealth to live off of or have any sort of financial independence. And then the Department of Labor has said that only about 10 to 5% of retirees are actually prepared for retirement, which to me just says that the current idea around budgeting and the way that people go about it is just not working. And I know that there's inflation. I know that there's economic issues. I know there's social issues. There's a whole bunch of issues that go into that. But if we can create a structure and a system that doesn't make people feel guilty and helps people capture and raises an income and helps people just have a better way of going about it, I feel like this solution can help more people than are currently taking advantage of it in a way that will help people actually reach their outcomes that they want. Everyone wants the outcome of financial independence, which is essentially that's retirement. I don't think retirement is something people should actually aspire to, because retirement takes you out of commission from bringing value to the world. But the fact that you have financial independence can allow you to be more impactful in what brings you joy and fulfillment. So financial independence to me is the goal, not retirement. So budgeting doesn't work. It works for some, like it does. I'm not saying it doesn't work for everyone. Like there are disciplined people in our world that do extraordinary jobs with budgets. Dave Ramsey he teaches budgets. There's people I know that are just hard, fast budgeters. But for everyone else, this solution can be a great opportunity for you, and it can make a world of difference. I do have to take a step back before I can explain the system, though, so you can understand the philosophy behind it.
Okay.
So some of your listeners might be familiar with Parkinson's law in the terms of, like, if I give a certain project X amount of time, I'm going to complete it in that time, but it also applies to finance. And the way it applies to finance is as my income increases, my expenses are going to rise to either meet or exceed that income in about 6 months. So what this does is it keeps people on this constant treadmill of never feeling like they're actually getting ahead, because as their income rises, they just go spend that new amount of income. So it keeps people trapped. And so if you can interject a system into this, that as your income rises, it will lag behind or allow the expenses to lag behind, your income will keep rising. The vast majority of people, if you ask them how much they made 5 years ago, the vast majority of people are making more today than they were 5 years ago. So increasing your income isn't really a problem for people. It's just the fact that their expenses always rise to meet the new amount of income. And so this system will help create a gap. And once you create that gap, you've created a savings amount that can start to get bigger and bigger every single year that you increase your income. So long term, if you're able to overcome Parkinson's law in finance, you're going to save millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars more than you would have had you just tried to budget and figure it out that way. So now let me describe the system, but do you have any questions off of that you think your listeners would value from a question?
So I think that's a fantastic thing. And I think Parkinson's law is like definitely something that we are all kind of guilty of in a way. I know myself personally, I can understand completely what you're saying. What I wonder, and I think my listeners would be wondering about too, for people who maybe are, struggling right now with inflation the way it is, maybe they're in a one income family. I know for myself personally, I have a 3-year-old at home. So I talk to a lot of mothers and families who are really struggling with that work-life balance. And some people had to, stay at home to be able to take care of their kids while they have only one income coming in. So, for them, even though income's going up, they're struggling for that ability just to pay the day-to-day. How do we get groceries on the table, things like that. So I look at Parkinson's law, and I also think about Maslow's hierarchy. And I'm wondering where this model plays in when it comes to people who are just meeting basic safety needs, right? Is this more of a model that we're talking about for people who are kind of more in the middle of Maslow's and kind of are no longer worrying about those type of things? Does it apply to them? Obviously, people who have hit self-actualization, which is usually around $75,000 to $80,000 worth of income, I think this model, absolutely, I can see it applying immediately, as long as they're keeping, like you said, their expenses down, discretionary up. But I worry about the people that are down in those lower echelons. I also worry about the smaller businesses who are just starting out and thinking, how can I apply this model to our business when we really don't even make enough yet to cover the expenses? So I'm just curious where that correlation goes in.
So for me, is what I like to see is if you can create the habit, even when you're struggling, it will build it for the long term. So let me describe the system, and then I'll explain how I think this could still work for the people that are still struggling and they're actually either negative or just barely positive.
Okay.
And then because I think it can, but I don't think it won't work numbers wise, but what it will work for is some positive momentum, which I think is just as empowering as the actual process. So the way this process works is the vast majority of people, when they make money, it falls directly down into their checking account. I like to call the checking account a spending account, because when money is in the checking account, it gets spent. And oftentimes it gets spent unconsciously, meaning we have no idea where it goes, which is why budgeting thinks, oh, that's the obvious choice. If I can identify and budget my way and tell my dollars a job, then it solves the problem. But for the people that you're describing on the lower end, that's very difficult, because it feels like just everything has a cost and everything is there. Like I remember as a graduate student, like you just don't have any money, and it just feels like you never are quite bursting past. It just feels like you're always getting to zero, and then it just comes right back out. Like money's in, money's out. So I do sympathize and I understand that philosophy, but typically for most people that is unconsciously spent. They have no idea where the money's going. So every time they get a raise, every time they make money, it falls into this checking account, and then it just disappears from them because Parkinson's law is taking it. So as what we help people do is we put a wealth reservoir up here. That's just the term. You can call it a wealth captured account, a wealth preserve account, whatever it is, but you have the wealth reservoir here and your checking account here. So as you make more money, it lands inside the wealth reservoir first. And then on automated schedule, you could set up just to be just like your typical bank or like your typical account, like your like a paycheck. It will send it down to your checking account. And so what this does is any new income that falls in, any raises in income, any increases in amount of income fall here, but the dollar amount that's sent to your spending account stays exactly the same. And so now as your income rises, you're going to see your wealth reservoir account also rise. And you can raise the amount you need to live on every month, but now it's a choice. It's not unconsciously spent. I see the $1,000 in there. I need to spend it still. So I'm going to go grab and spend it. But now you've consciously made the the connection that I saved that. I was successful in saving $1,000 because it got captured inside my wealth reservoir. So now let me describe who you're talking about, the person that's just completely struggling. I still feel the system would benefit them because I think it empowers them to push for something bigger. Because those people, they have value. They have something to give this world, whether it's to an employer or through their own entrepreneurship, whatever it is, they can give something, but sometimes they feel trapped by the fact that they just can't get over anything and they can't get something moving positive for them. So is what I would say is set up the system, have it land in your wealth reservoir, save $1, and then send everything else down. If you need to go get that $1 at the end of the month, go grab the $1 and send it down. But if you don't, leave the $1 in there and start to build just some positive habit of momentum that I am valuable. That dollar is a representation for the value that I have delivered to this world, and it's mine because I paid myself first. And I'm going to go seek out new training and new ways to help my employer to be more valuable in my employment, and then slowly build momentum that way. To me, that's the only way you can start to build the train of momentum. Even if it's small, it builds the habit and it catches people. And I know that it feels like it's just an extra step to have it stop here and then send everything down. But to me, unless you're creating that momentum, you're never going to actually start the momentum and you can't get the train rolling.
I think it's fantastic because we talk a lot about habits, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. And I think for wherever you are on the wealth spectrum, creating that habit is key because we have so many things that we do on a day-to-day basis that is habitual. And what we're really talking about is not really breaking those spending habits, but changing the way we do those spending habits. So making sure that we're capturing a little bit over here that we're putting away, but then still enabling us to do the things that we want to do or need to do on a day-to-day basis. And I completely agree with that because it takes research has shown it takes about 6 months really for someone to say, okay, I've changed a habit, and for that really to stick. It's a long time. It's not something we can change in a day. It's not something we can change in a month. And I think starting as early on, and even if we can instill this value and this concept into kids going into college, even as you were talking about, and start right at that ground level, instilling that philosophy, that thought process, it only builds them up for success. And I think that's a really great way to think about it. Put $1 away. Everyone can do $1. And right. I think that's a really great message to send people. And whether you are an individual, whether you're a small business starting up, whether you're a nonprofit who thinks that, you just need to break even, that we shouldn't be saving money, which we always need to be saving money for those rainy days, right? Start with $1, just as Justin said. $1 is the best way, and then make it $5 and then maybe $7. And I think that's a great way of thinking about it, Justin. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Any wise wisdom around this that you can think of, that you can leave us with a parting thought?
I think for me, I know it's really hard for people to think long-term and the impact that small decisions can make, but this is one decision that will dramatically change your life as you increase your standing and as you start to build towards something. The math on this is pretty extraordinary. So let's just say, I'm just going to use figurative numbers here, but we'll say 30 years from now, and we just have a 3% increase in our income annually. So it's just slow and steady rise. We don't have any big jumps, but we don't increase our expenses by 3% annually. We just increase our expenses by 1% annually. So we are increasing our lifestyle. We're just increasing it slower than the average person is. The difference between the individual that just is trying to always be on the treadmill and versus me that set up the system, I'm going to have 4 to 5 times more money saved than that person that was just trying to save whatever was left every month. Like, it could be more than that, but it's going to be at least 4 to 5 times more money. But that's 4 to 5 times more money that could have also been put to work in something else and built wealth. And let's just say you are one of those people that's just starting out and it's not very big. Like, you're not making very much money, but you're still doing the system and only increasing 3% and 1%. The habit and the fact that you created your life around that is going to echo into your children and start to radiate into their children and their children, and start to build and get people out of that poverty trap that generations get stuck in. And I know that that's not the only solution. I know there's a whole bunch of other things, but in my mind, this can be one way that can help start getting people out of that poverty trap that people get stuck in long term.
And I completely agree. And, as you were talking, I actually thought about something else that comes up a lot when I do some of my one-on-one coaching with people. There's a lot of thinking, obviously the world of pensions has gone away. So this future thinking about saving money is critically important. So we're not working till we're 90 years old, that we have, the support that we need. But then there's also the school of thought that, why are we leaving that money? Our children are going to be taxed on it, this and that. Why not just spend it now while we have it, enjoy it with our families, gift it to them while we're still alive, so there's not those penalties later on down the line? How do we address that kind of thinking around long-term savings for retirement and things like that? And how do we address the people who are, concerned of saying, well, we really don't need to save that much because we're going to spend it and enjoy it while we can and while we're still here?
Right. No, I think I have a unique answer in this space as well. I feel, let me just give an example for my family. So I feel I have not the wealth passing is not necessarily the money. I feel like passing the money is important, but if you don't have the other stuff, the teaching the values and the doctrines and what wealth actually means and what value deliverance means and what business actually is and the impact of a good citizen, if you're not passing those values on, then handing wealth over is just going to be spent and it's useless and you might as well spend every dollar. But for me, I'm building values and doctrines and systems around the way that I'm teaching my children and the way that they're going to look and view money and the way they view the world. And I feel that me leaving a portion or a chunk of wealth to them will only enable them and give them the ability to, not necessarily my children, but my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, to have more opportunity to help more people in the future. And because they've been brought up through the system of this is what business is, and this is the value that you deliver through business, or even if you're an employee, the fact that you still have value, and when you go to work, you're delivering that value. And the reason you're getting paid is because you're a valuable person. And the more value you can bring to the situation, the more that you're going to get paid, the more impact you can solve the problem with. To me, that's what I want to leave them with. And I want to enable them to not have to rely on governments or other people, other organizations or the society, but our family can sustain itself with the wealth that's been built and it can be perpetuated onward. The last thing I would say is when it comes to spending is we actually encourage people to spend their savings down in their last years. You can save it down and still comfortably live. There's strategies around the way that you can do that so that you can save, not because the problem with spending down is there's a fear I'm going to outlive my money. And so there's strategies around spending down, but still not having that fear and having the protection to not for fear that I'm going to run out of money. So I feel like people should just know there are solutions there. But for me, it's all about, I want to leave wealth, but the money piece is only one piece of the wealth I'm leaving. It's the health that the health I'm leaving with them, the philosophies, the values that I want to leave. That's to me what I'm trying to build. Now, not everyone has that same drive or want, but I feel like for me, that can resonate with someone in the audience.
I completely agree. And I think on an individual basis, I know me personally as a mother and stuff, these are things that I would want to resonate with my own daughter as she gets older, and instill in her those values. So I think those are great pieces of advice. And, definitely things that we think about small businesses as, they grow, they hand them over maybe to other family members that take them over. You're instilling a structure in place that thinks about the long-term picture, not just the short-term moment. And again, the same thing with nonprofits. The boards evolve over time. There's new people that come in that are in charge. You're handing over the reins, and the financial health of an organization in those settings are going to be really important. So I think those philosophies apply very well in those areas as well. And so I think that's fantastic, Justin. And I know my audience is really going to appreciate your insight on this.
Yeah. If I can give one example that I think can help people. So I know that there's a lot of shifting away from religion, but religion has been passed down from generation to generation. So people are really good at instilling religious principles and values into their children, but they really neglect wealth values and health values and social values. And so if you can also learn to teach those values into your children, like those things are probably going to resonate with them. And if the religious side connects with them, they'll connect with it. But those things are probably just as valuable as the religious side, because now you're going to connect with them and not feel like, because typically sometimes what happens is if they only instill religious values, there's a rejection that occurs and there's a severance of the family. But if you're connecting values of all these different subjects into one whole pie, there's a less likely chance of that happening. You're going to keep your family unified for longer. This is all opinion, in my opinion, but I've seen evidences of it with who I've associated with and what I do. So I hope that example made sense, where people are really good at religious value giving, but they're not good at financial habit value giving and social cue value giving or political value giving. It's all war when it should be. We can have conversation and we can be united and show a lot more love in all of these areas, not just the religious side.
And I completely agree. I have definitely seen this in not only my teachings, but my consultancy work at the same time. So Justin, you gave us such great information and insight. I know my listeners are going to be really excited about this. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you or Big Life Financial or anybody from the company after this, if they want to learn more or kind of learn more about your system and join you guys?
Yeah, the easiest way to get on my calendar is to go to biglifefinancial.com/TRP. It will go directly to my calendar and you can book a call with me and we can just have a conversation. There's no cost to speaking with me. It's just like, can we help you? We're not going to be able to help everyone. Is this interest of you? Can we give you more tools so you can do this on your own? Like, there's no cost to just speaking with me. But if they want like just information, they can go to our website and we have a free book they can download and they can read blogs and listen to other podcast episodes and they can learn about us that way too.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Justin. I encourage all of you to connect with them and find out how they might be of use. And if not, just at least take advantage of the free resources they have on their website. So check it out, everyone. Thank you very much for being on today, Justin. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.